On this episode of the Turnbuckle, Vince McMahon could potentially return to creative control this year. WWE wanted Money in the Bank to be in the, quote, Madison Square Garden of London. And Daniel Garcia gets dragged for unprofessional behavior at a PWG event. Folks, we're hitting your favorite wrestling move into some wrestling news because it's time for the Turnbuckle. While speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez discussed McMahon's return and noted how McMahon could regain creative control of WWE. I think the fact that he is going to be the key person selling, he may be looking for assurances, Dave Meltzer said. The thing with Vince is that if a deal was good for the stockholders with him not in charge, once it's sold, it's out of his hands. He's never getting back in. So he had to do a thing where I will not approve any sale unless it's the right terms, and they had to kind of accept him back and pretend that everything is all copacetic because he had said basically that any negotiations for the next TV deal or for the sale, if he wasn't put back in charge, he would hold it up. He would never agree to it. So it's kind of like they were handcuffed in a lot of ways. The idea of Vince taking charge and everything like that, I don't see that happening for a couple of months. I don't think that's happening this week or anything like that. He basically filed a thing that said he's only going to be working when it comes to the sale of the TV deal, and as long as they are a public company, he does have to actually abide by that. But my gut is that once that sale is done, he probably will try to take over and get the creative back. I think everyone kind of expects that. I don't expect those moves to be made right away, but of course Vince wants to be head of creative, and Vince does have power as far as to facilitate it. He probably at some point this year will have the ability to do it without it having negative repercussions. That's obviously very daunting. You don't want to hear about that. You obviously don't want to hear about that if you're Triple H, if you're Stephanie McMahon, you know, if you're any of the stockholders, you know what I mean? That doesn't really, that sounds like a very foreboding bit of news to hear. Dave was like, oh, because the spotlight's on him and everything like that and the cameras and everything, like, you know what I'm saying? Obviously he's not going to do any of that. He's gonna, you know, he's gonna clasp his hands, you know what I'm saying, and he's gonna smile and wave and everything like that. But I feel like he is, I agree with Dave that he is going to try and do something. I don't know what that something is. I don't know how exactly he's going to go about doing that. But I agree with Dave when he says, that he's definitely going to try and do something to get back in. I would not put it past him. Even in the slightest, I wouldn't put it past him for a second. Next, we're going to be talking about how WWE wanted Money in the Bank to be at the Madison Square Garden of London. As previously reported, WWE will be holding the Money in the Bank event in the O2 Arena on July 1st. This will be the first Money in the Bank event to be held outside of the United States. According to Fightful, the company views the, quote, Madison Square Garden of England, and it was a venue they wanted to travel to. It was further noted that running a show of this magnitude helps establish the importance of Money in the Bank as one of their biggest pay-per-views. So I know that I feel like I've been bringing this up a lot, but I feel as though that it needs to be stated that apparently it seems like Money in the Bank is not going anywhere. It seems like Money in the Bank is staying as a standalone pay-per-view, and it seems like they're trying to sort of slot it in as like one of the big pay-per-views, which, I mean, I don't really, I'm very indifferent towards it, you know what I mean? Like, in terms of how Money in the Bank sort of like holds itself and like where it sort of stands on the hierarchy of pay-per-views and everything like that, I don't think that it's that great, but like it's not bad. I just feel as though that it's like Hell in a Cell, like it's just one of those pay-per-views that I feel like is kind of like unnecessary, you know what I mean? You could put that on like a completely different pay-per-view, sort of like slot it in. You know how No Way Out used to have Elimination Chamber? Like, it doesn't have to specifically be its own pay-per-view. You can have a pay-per-view event and you could just say, oh, this is the pay-per-view where Money in the Bank is also held. You know what I mean? I was looking forward to Money in the Bank. I along with a lot of people, were looking forward to Money in the Bank going back to being, you know, a WrestleMania type deal. But I mean, look, it sounds like WWE wants to make this its own big pay-per-view. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like WWE understands that it could be an add-on, right, to a pay-per-view, but it doesn't, I guess WWE is like, we don't really have to do that. We don't have to abide by that rule. You know what I mean? We could just sort of expand it whenever we want to. You know what I mean? That's WWE's decision. We can't really say anything about that. And listen, I mean, with Triple H in charge, it's not like Money in the Bank is going to be bad, you know? So at the end of the day, it's not really that big of a deal. Finally, we're going to be talking about Daniel Garcia and how he was dragged for unprofessional behavior at a PWG event. The former Ring of Honor Pure Champion was dragged for acting in an unprofessional manner with the fans in attendance for a recent Pro Wrestling Guerrilla event. Daniel Garcia's heel reaction got the best of him, leading to shouting and kicking the fans who tried to greet him. His behavior, I've seen on Twitter, attracted a lot of mixed reactions from the fans. Listen, I'm just gonna say this. Don't go near the wrestlers. And if you're a wrestler, maybe don't be as aggressive with the fans, because not all of them are assholes. That's all I'm gonna say about this. None of them are in the right, okay? Daniel Garcia and the fan, who apparently is the same fan who, like, tried to step up to Jacob Fatu, was that his name, and got absolutely put down for it. Listen, okay? Don't go near the fans. I don't think I should be telling you that. I feel as though that you should be smart enough. You should be able to look in your mind's eye, and you should be able to say, hey, I probably shouldn't walk up to the performers right now while they're performing. That doesn't seem like a good idea. I probably shouldn't approach them in what can be misconstrued as an aggressive manner. You know what I mean? Like, I know that he was probably just in the moment and everything like that, and I know Daniel Garcia was probably in the moment and everything, yada, yada, yada. The point is they both probably shouldn't have done that. Daniel Garcia didn't have to kick anybody because he kicked one fan, and the one fan backed off. He backed off. The other fan did not. And that is, I feel like, where the situation sort of arose. Because of all, I mean, okay, I don't think Daniel Garcia was trying to kick anyone's heads off or hands off from a fan or anything like that. I don't think that was the case. I just think Daniel Garcia was just being a heel, playing up to the crowd, and one of the guys just got a little bit too emotional. I don't know. But from what I saw, Daniel Garcia kicked one dude backed off. Another dude was flipping him off as he was walking up to him. Daniel Garcia kicked his hand. He stepped back. He approached again, Daniel Garcia, and back and forth. Literally the same thing. Middle finger kick. And then the one dude who got kicked, the first dude, he like put his hand out to be like, hey, back off of him, right? And then he got like pulled away, and then the security guard, I guess, must have said something along the lines of like, hey man, relax, chill out, you know what I'm saying? Don't do that again, pretty much, because he wasn't like holding him, and he didn't like escort him out of the building. So he was pretty much just like, hey, relax, you know, just cool it. Obviously, you're gonna have polarizing, viewpoints on it, in the sense of like, oh, the fan deserved that because he shouldn't have been that close, and Daniel Garcia didn't need to act like that. You're gonna have polarizing viewpoints on the whole situation. The way I see it, both of them are in the wrong. That shouldn't happen. What do we talk about? Vince McMahon could be back in creative. I'm not gonna say 100% chance. There is an 80% chance. We'll knock it down to 75 just to be safe, that Vince McMahon could potentially be back in creative. Listen, if you ask me, I'm not going to completely rule it out. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, there's no way. There's a chance. I mean, the man's is back in, he's back as the head of the board. So, I mean, what's stopping from being like, from Princess and the Frog, where he's like, yes, you know what I'm saying? You know that? Like, what's stopping him from doing that? We're just gonna wait and see. WWE wanted Money in the Bank to be held at the Madison Square Garden of London. So this is my thing. You can obviously see the signs that WWE is taking Money in the Bank very seriously, which is why I'm not really opposed to WWE being like, yeah, this is the big pay-per-view. You should look at this. You know what I mean? If they are making it so that everybody looks at Money in the Bank as like Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, okay, sure. If you give me a reason, fine. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to do any of that. If you're giving me a good reason and you're giving me valid observations to go off of, right? Then it's like, all right, I can't really say anything. And then you go seeing the fan. Again, both are the wrong. Both shouldn't have done it. I'm not taking sides. They shouldn't have done that. Obviously, you're going to have people be like, the fan. Listen, it doesn't bode well for the fan, considering the fact that this is not the first time that he's done it, okay? So you'd think that he would sort of go back into his mind and be like, hey, maybe I shouldn't do that because the last time that happened, I got my shit kicked in. But listen, I can't speak for him, and he can't speak for me, and he can't speak for Daniel Garcia, just like how I can't speak for Daniel Garcia. They're adults, okay, and they did their thing, all right. Again, I'm not saying it's good. I just know that Daniel Garcia is going to get dragged for this, as he obviously already is, and I don't think that it's fair that there are some people out there that are specifically calling out Daniel Garcia and not the fan. They both did it, all right? They're both idiots. Folks, that's going to do it for this episode. Hopefully everybody has a wonderful tonight and a wonderful tomorrow. As always, big hugs all around.